everyone, hope that you're well. Welcome back to the channel. This is where we look at my table tennis journey, my table tennis progress. I've been playing for about 7 or 8 years now, I would say. And yeah, I'd say that I've improved from being virtually a complete beginner to a fairly competent local league player now. Starting to play a little bit more nationally, so playing some national leagues and some national tournaments. And yeah, I'm kind of documenting my journey along the way, so I like to show my matches, but also my training, the stuff that I'm working on. I've had coaching from some excellent players, some excellent coaches, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I've learned. There's obviously a lot more that I need to learn and that I want to learn, but yeah, I like to sort of share the stuff that I'm working on, so it will hopefully help you guys to improve along the way as well. So this is going to be the second episode in a series that I've called The Importance Of. The first episode, I've had some really good feedback actually. If you haven't had a chance to watch that, please do have a look on my channel. It's called The Importance Of Letting Go of the Fear of Missing. So, I've got some good ideas in that will help you guys to improve. This episode is going to be something a little bit more, probably a little bit more unusual to look at. And this is kind of like the idea of this series really, is that we're going to be looking at various different aspects of table tennis that I consider to be important. So there's going to be some technical stuff where we'll actually look at technique and what I consider to be absolutely vital in playing a good shot. But we're also going to be looking at some of the things that perhaps aren't covered quite as much or aren't discussed, but I still think are equally valid in trying to improve at table tennis. So we'll be looking at the more mental aspects of the game. We're going to be looking at different things that you need to be aware of and that you need to accept in your journey to improve, because it's not by any means easy. It's one of those things with table tennis that, on the face of it, you sort of think like, oh, well, it's, you're just hitting the ball across a relatively small table with a net there. I mean, how much can there be to it? But as you kind of delve into it, there are just so many elements to it that it's absolutely kind of mind-blowing in a way. But there are certain things that you need to prioritise, certain things that you need to be aware of to help you get better. So that's going to be the idea of this episode today. What I'm going to be talking about is accepting the delay in the transition from your practice to your competitive matches, basically. And it's something that used to frustrate me an awful lot when I first started playing. But it's something that, like I say, you need to, if you can be aware of this, then it actually helps you to plan your practice. It also helps you to be aware and also to be a little bit patient in everything that's going on, really. So, I would say for me that my journey kind of like began properly in about 2017, and I started having some coaching. I started off initially by just going to some social sessions, just playing for fun, and then I started to have a little bit of coaching. I started to play a little bit of competitive table tennis, and I improved very quickly. But I can distinctly remember going to a training session that was at Lowton High School with George Lennon. And it was around about I think it was the first season that I was playing proper. So again, so it would have been sort of 2017 time. And I remember going to, so the sessions that George used to run, there were 3 different groups. There were beginners, intermediate, and then there were like the more advanced league players. And it was really nice because even though I consider myself more to be in the middle group, George said to me, no, come along and we'll put you with the league players. And we would do various different drills. We'd do, we'd try and do 20 forehand to forehand, then we'd do 20 backhand to backhand, then we'd do transition work like, 1 forehand, 1 backhand, 2 forehand, 2 backhand, so on and so forth. And I can just remember that there was one particular session that we went to where we were doing all of these drills and I was working with various different league players, and I kind of felt like I was doing the drills as well as them. And I felt like if someone who didn't know who I was, if you just got them to stand there and watch, you probably wouldn't be able to tell who was the more advanced league player and who was the more, sort of more towards the beginner end of the spectrum. So, I sort of felt like I was really kind of on a par with, with all these good league players. But then at the end of the practice session, we'd normally spend about probably 15-20 minutes doing top table. So that would be where, obviously we had, the row of the tables, you'd have top table, you'd have a bottom table, you would play a game, and then at the end of the game, if you won, you moved up a table, and if you lost, you moved down a table. And by the end of that session, I was on the bottom table. And it just used to drive me mad, because I'd kind of come away from it and I'd be like, well, I just don't understand how it is that I can do all of these drills really, really well, and yet when we're actually going into these games, I'm getting beat by everybody. And I just used to find it really, really frustrating. Yeah, and then I kind of had this little spell where I felt like I just didn't seem to be getting any better, and I was like, well, I'm working hard, but it doesn't seem to be coming into my matches and everything. And I think what you have to kind of accept with table tennis is that it is a very instinctive sport. So, and I know you can say this about, there's a lot of sports that, that are probably similar, but in table tennis in particular, you have absolutely no time to think when you're playing especially in a competitive match where there's a bit of adrenaline, and especially getting to like a slightly better level, so top local league, or you start playing in like national leagues like British League, for example, you just don't have any time to think. And so you can't expect to consciously think, oh, I need to close my bat angle a little bit, or I need to turn my body a little bit more, or I need to try and use my legs a little bit more, or all of those kind of thoughts that you can work on in training. You simply cannot do that in a table tennis match. So what actually starts to happen is you're in effect playing completely on autopilot. And I often think about it, it's a bit like I'm a passenger on this ride.
450, you ready to go? Ready? Here we go.
It's going to be a little bit before we get you higher than that for traffic.
Wow. Yep, that was awesome.
And my body is just leading it. So it's like, the ball comes at me at a certain angle, my body will react, and I'm just going to do it. So because it's so instinctive, you will immediately revert to your habit and especially the more under pressure that you are, the more adrenaline there is, the tighter that you are, you will revert to your habit. So the only way that you can get good and make it so that your habit is correct is to train, and you need to train a lot so that you're instinctively doing the correct things. Now, what you have to realise, if you're having a lesson where you're changing a particular part of your technique, so it may well be that you're working on backhand flick, for example, and you could have a lesson where somebody will show you the correct technique. There may be a few points like, the correct way to step in, the correct angle for your elbow and for your wrist, the correct contact point on the ball. And you can kind of do that in a training session. And you can actually go from not being able to play the shot at all to being able to play the shot fairly competently, probably in the space of 20 minutes, half an hour. So you can do that. But you can't then expect that the next time you go into a match that you can then just start backhand flicking everything. It may happen, but it's extremely unlikely. Now, what I would say that for me, my forehand has improved an awful lot, and my forehand now is pretty good. My backhand is nowhere near the level of my forehand. It's good, it's solid, I can play the shots, but it's nowhere near as good as my forehand technique. So this is one of the things that I'm really, really trying to work on at the moment. I've been having a few coaching sessions with a few different people, and yeah, it's something that I'm really keen now to try and push it on. And what we're looking at doing is kind of developing the technique, because I'd say at the moment I still kind of use my backhand very much for control. I will open up with it, but then in a rally it's more about being consistent, keeping the ball on the table and placing it well, which I think is absolutely fine, especially because my forehand is strong. It's good to just have a competent and solid backhand. But for me, the way I see it for the next 2 or 3 years, for me to progress and to really sort of like try and push on to the next level, which I've kind of discussed in other videos, is like it's an area I'm getting a little bit frustrated with at the moment. Is that I don't quite feel that I'm progressing perhaps quite as quickly as I would like to be, and I'm finding it very difficult to get from the level I'm at now to the next level. I think that the development of my backhand is absolutely crucial in that. So I've already had sort of 2 or 3 really, really good training sessions where I've been working on specifically on developing the technique, trying to use my body a little bit more, trying to use my legs a little bit more, and just generally really like working on the technique. And I'm finding that in the practice sessions that I've had so far, I've actually been hitting some really, really nice stuff. And there's been a few times I've hit some backhands and I've sort of said to myself, well, do you know what? If I could do that in a match, then like I would be a different player. I'd be a completely different player. But I know that, and I have experienced this already, is that I'm not doing it in the matches. I'm trying to, but I just haven't quite got the instinct to play and to use that shot, especially in an aggressive manner. That's what I haven't quite got at the moment. And I often think of that there are two parts to playing a shot. There is having the shot itself and having the instinct to play the shot. Now, I have got the technique and the ability to be able to do it, but I just don't quite have the instinct as of yet. So the mindset that I have is that, yes, I've had some really good training sessions on my backhand so far. Yes, I'm developing that technique and I'm slowly becoming more and more comfortable with being able to do it. But I haven't quite got the instinct to actually play the shot just yet. But I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine, because I have, in my own mind, I've accepted that what I'm working on in training now isn't going to come into my game just yet. And I think this is something, and again, this is the main point of this video really, is to just make you aware that, you need to have that as your mindset. You have to be really, really careful, because it's so easy to start getting a little bit demoralised that you can train and have some really good training sessions, and then you go into your match and you don't play anywhere near that level. So you've got to try and have that. And if you can have that mindset that what you're working on now, you will reap the benefits in a few months' time. It's quite interesting really, because it kind of gives you a different level of motivation. Like I say, for me, so I've had some nights where I've had like a training session planned, or I've had a coaching session, and I've sort of thought to myself, oh, do you know what? I've had a long day at work. I'm really tired. I don't feel great. I really can't be bothered. But then as soon as I think to myself, well, no, because if I do this now, this is going to benefit me down the line. I'm going to get better in the future. It gives you a different kind of motivation. It will help to get rid of that frustration and the impatience, and to basically to know that what you're working on now. Okay, it might not work into your game straight away, but it is going to help you get better. It will do. You've just got to keep working on the right things, and if you play poorly, it doesn't matter. Keep working on the right things, and they will work themselves into your game. But because table tennis is so instinctive, it will take time. Okay, so I think that will really, really help you. I would say that, again, for me personally, I can be a testament to that, like with my forehand. So the first sort of season or two that I played table tennis, very much I'd push and I'd push and I'd push again, and I'd almost be a little bit worried about trying to open up. But then, because I worked on that so hard in training, that now my instinct, whenever the ball comes to me, or whenever somebody pushes the ball, especially to my forehand, I'm going to open that. And it's actually very, very difficult for me to push and push again, because, and especially in a match, I just want to open that ball. Now that has come, but that's not an instinct that I had already. That's an instinct that I've developed, and that's come over a period of time, because I've worked at it and I've worked at it and I've worked at it. Okay, so another element that I think is that's really, really important, as well as accepting this delay in the transition, you've got to try and help that along yourself a little bit. So you've really got to try to push any new bits of technique, anything that you're sort of working on in your training. You've got to try and push that a little bit into your matches as well. I've seen this, and I think I've been a victim of this myself, and I've also seen it with some of the guys that I play with, is that you can kind of get into a mentality that because you're working on it in training, then it will come into your matches. And it probably will do, but what will kind of speed the process up, and what will kind of make sure that it does get into your proper actual competitive match play, is that you have to try and use some of this new stuff in your matches. Now, what can start to happen is that you just sort of assume that because you're working on it in training, because you're having lessons, you're going to get better. And like I said, that is true to an extent, but you have to try and bring some of this new stuff. You have to almost sort of force yourself to try and use some of this new stuff. You've got to make that transition. So again, you know, probably a really good example would be for myself. Forehand flick is a shot that I just did not have about 18 months ago. I didn't have it at all. Someone would serve short to my forehand, I would push it, and I would push it, and I would push it. And it was just my instinct to do that. And I just had never worked on the technique to do it. So then, because it's one of the things that I'd identified, so I started working on this. I've done it with Kamal, I've done it with Phil Bowen quite a lot. But what I was actually finding is that I was doing it quite nicely in training. Then as soon as I'd get into a match, I'd start pushing again. And I found this quite frustrating. I was a bit like, well, you know, why am I doing this? I'm doing this well, and I'm not doing it in a match. So what I started to do is whenever I would go and have a practice session or have some practice matches, I used to say to myself, if somebody serves short anywhere around the forehand area, I'm going to flick it no matter what. And even if I miss it every single time, I'm still going to try and do it, because that's the only way that I'm going to get it into the game. And again, it kind of comes back to what I talked about last time about this, having, you know, letting go of the fear of missing. I had to just keep trying to do it and keep trying to do it. And it's the same like with my backhand as well. You know, one of the big issues that I've been having is trying to run around my backhand to play a forehand. So now I'm trying to say to myself, I've got to stand my ground and I've got to try and play some backhands. So just be aware of that, you know, that you need to really try and make an effort to transition it from your practice to your actual matches. And again, hopefully if you keep training the right things, they will, on a subconscious level, make their way into your actual competitive matches. But again, you will help it along greatly if you can just give yourself that little bit of a push. Try and use it in training matches, especially. Try and sort of say to yourself, so this is what I'm going to do. Like whenever I go down to practice now, I'm just trying to win matches, trying to win practice matches using my backhand all the time, because that's the only way that it's going to come in to my proper matches. But I'm still very much in a mindset at the moment that I'm working on this now in practice, but it's not going to be the level that I want probably for a few months yet. So I've just got to keep working on it. Okay, so I hope that you found this useful. Like I say, I think that it is something, once you've kind of got your head around this kind of concept, it will sort of ease your, it will bring sort of like patience to your training. It'll bring a little bit of patience as well and a little bit of acceptance into your matches. Hopefully you won't get quite as frustrated if you're not playing as well as you think that you can. You keep working on the right things and it will work its way into your game. Okay, so like I said, I've got lots and lots of good stuff planned for not only this series, I've got some exciting stuff that we're going to be working on, all the different topics. I've got lots of vlogs planned as well. We'll be looking at other elements of my training. Yeah, so, and the other thing as well I wanted to say is we've just recently hit 1,000 subscribers. I really, really do appreciate that. I appreciate everybody that comes up to me when I play in tournaments, when I play in matches, and they say that they enjoy my videos. I really do get a lot out of that. So thank you very much to everyone that's subscribed. Like I say, lots of good stuff coming up, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.